What was the most creepy incident where your gut instinct turned out to be completely correct? I live on the second story of a duplex. Our front balcony extends out right next to the driveway. My roommate parks his truck right next to the balcony in the driveway. My outdoor cat will frequently access the balcony via the top of the truck. So I'm lying in bed one night, and around 2:30 to 3 AM I hear a strange noise. My house is very old, so I am no stranger to bumps in the night, but this time seemed different. I checked the foot of my bed. My cat was awoken as well, sitting up, ears perked. He heard it, too. I hear another slight noise. My heart starts racing. My hands are sweaty. Something's up. Something's happening and it's not good. I contemplate waking up my roommate, but he's a real grouch. I'm 24F, he's 29M and sleeps with a .45 next to the bed. I get out of bed to investigate and am unreasonably terrified every step of the way. Flick on the dining room light. Nothing. Take my time peering around the corner into the living room. Due to trying not to shit my pants, balcony door is wide open. Very possible we fell asleep with it that way. Can't be positive, but no sign of anyone. So I close the door and go back to my room. Must have been the neighbors downstairs. I don't hear any more weird noises that night. 2 days later I get a text from my aggravated roommate about how he was standing in the bed of his truck to access his toolbox and noticed the footprints and dents on the top of his truck. Some preface. And it sounds crazy, whenever I buy a book, someone in my family dies, so it's a thing that's happened for a few years. Not always the same day but within about a month or so, but I chalked it up to coincidence. One day I'm in the store and I'm thinking about buying a book. I pick it up and then put it back on the shelf, but I didn't know why. Fast forward 4 hours. I'm sitting at home and we get a phone call. My brother and sister were in the car together and there was an accident. 2 tires popped but no one injured on the entrance to the freeway. They said it could have been much worse. I couldn't fall asleep. I kept telling my girlfriend at 1:30 AM that something didn't feel right. Finally fell asleep after the worrisome feeling in my stomach left. Found out the next morning my brother got hit in his car by someone running a light around the same time of my gut feelings. He was made it okay, but needed a new car. At about midnight 7 years ago I saw a cop drive past me quickly. As soon as I saw him fly by I got this knot in my stomach. I felt just an overwhelming need to follow the cop. I followed him a couple of miles and there was an accident my brother was involved in. It was absolutely crazy. Walking down the road at around 2 in the morning with some friends. Got a really creepy feeling as we were about to cross a street. I said stop to my friends and right as we would have crossed the street, a car that I have no idea how we didn't see, flew around the corner right where we would have been. My father was supposed to be at the WTC during the 11th of September for a business trip. The night before the trip, I told him I didn't want him to go, and that I felt sick so he should stay home with me. I was about 11 at the time. Next morning he didn't believe me, and I ended up puking on him. He stayed home and didn't go on that business trip. Once, when I was camping as a teenager I woke up in the middle of the night because I thought I heard some rustling outside the tent. I woke my brother up who was sleeping in the same tent. We listened and frantically clutched the bear spray, wondering if we should make noise and scare it away or be completely still. Anyway, after a while we convinced ourselves that it was probably just a raccoon or a little critter and went back to sleep. In the morning when my uncle woke up and we told him what happened he kind of laughed it off. And then we found this giant pile of grizzly bear poop, fresh according to my uncle who is a poop expert, in the trees beside our tent. When I was in the 8th grade I had a feeling that something horrible was about to happen. I was up all night constantly checking on my family, making sure the front door was locked, etc. I heard an ambulance at about 5 AM but didn't think much of it. Got to school a few hours later and found out that one of my good friends had died in his sleep that night from an enlarged heart. I always trust those gut feelings now. 16 years old, I was getting ready to drive my GF and mutual couple friends to a Sadie Hawkins dance. First winter I had my license and it was some nasty MN weather that evening. In my gut I knew I shouldn't go, shouldn't drive, something bad will happen. My little brother started crying as I was getting ready to leave. which was very uncharacteristic for a 10-year-old. But what is a 16-year-old supposed to do? Call my GF the night of the dance and tell her I'm staying home to watch TV with my family? I went anyway. With a car full of people, I lost control on an old country road and had a head-on collision with another vehicle, both of us doing around 50 miles per hour. Seatbelt saved my life. Other occupants fared less well, including my friend in the backseat who lost her legs and suffered brain damage. There isn't actually a year listed for when this happened. It could have been back in the 70s, when driving laws were far more lax. Also, just because they were driving 50, which both cars were doing, not just the inexperienced driver, that doesn't mean that was the maximum speed limit on that road. It may have been 70, and they were both driving well under the recommended limit due to the weather. Shit happens. And regardless of what is true, people make mistakes, and the guilt most feel internally after these situations is worse than anyone can lay on us. Just try to be human, yo. This was about a year ago. It was winter and the sun had gone down relatively early, around 6 PM. It's unusual for me to take naps at all, but I was exhausted and decided to crash an hour or two so I could have the energy to go out later. I turned off the lights so it was pitch dark and crawled under the covers, immediately passed out. Suddenly, what must have been 20 minutes later, I was jolted wide awake. My eyes had just flew open and for no apparent reason I was breathing deeply and very uneasy. There were no sounds, just silence, and I was facing the wall, opposite the other wall, which was a large glass sliding door out to the patio. You know, sometimes when someone passes you from behind and you get a chill down your spine? I got this chill. I just knew someone was there. My heart started beating rapidly and I slowly rolled over in my covers. Sure enough, there was a large black shadow of a man standing directly in front of the window, and right then began sliding the door open. I hadn't thought of locking it since I was home anyways. As he inched it open, I realized he had no idea that someone was in the darkness in front of him. He took a step into the room, and in my crazy adrenaline, maybe he had a gun? Adrenaline don't care. I screamed "Hi-ya-ya-ya" in a high-pitched voice and burst out of the bed, covers flying, straight towards him. He freaked and ran like hell back into the night, saying shh and tripping over the fence. It took around 3 hours for my heart rate to return to normal after that. I used to keep my cell phone ringer on when I went to sleep every night out of habit. One night I was staying the night at my boyfriend's and figured I should turn it off in case someone called in the morning and woke us up. We were lazy and in college, and it was a Saturday night into Sunday morning, so we were definitely sleeping in. Anyways, 1 AM rolls around. He's up gaming and I'm in bed about to try and sleep and my stomach just dropped. I turned my phone volume off, even though I felt like I really shouldn't, justifying it with the whole "nothing ever happens, and I want to sleep." Fell asleep shortly after that, and woke up at about 7 AM to my older sister calling the boyfriend's phone over and over because he was still asleep and just hitting ignore. Turns out my younger sister was in a crazy random accident and was shot in the head at about 1:15 AM when I turned my volume off. She made it miraculously, and is all fine now. And for people asking, she was hanging out with some friends when a group of kids that were trying to start a gang showed up, and they were followed by some other kids that they had just stolen from. A fight broke out, and my sister tried to leave with her friend in her car. She started driving and heard gunshots, so she and her friend both leaned down over the center console, and whoever had the gun shot at her car, and since she was leaned behind her friend, she got hit. Apparently the bullet hit at just the right spot and had all these crazy factors working in her favor, because she literally came out from the accident just fine. She was in the hospital for 7 days total, only 5 in the ICU. She had a little trouble with speech the first day or two after, but she recovered pretty quick. The doctors told her she had something like a 1 in 100 million chance of surviving in general, let alone with no real side effects. They couldn't take the bullet out, either, because of its location in her brain. I still get nightmares about this, but here goes. The 25th of February, 2015. My grandfather is in critical condition with a form of AIDS after having a lung removed due to cancer. At this point he's been on a ventilator and in a medically induced coma for 3 days. Knowing I can't miss any more work, I decide to go to work that night. While sitting down for dinner at work, I just couldn't get the feeling something isn't right. I told my father to call me with an update around 5 PM. Speed up, it's now 6:30 PM and I just felt something had gone terribly wrong. I leave work in my campus cruiser to the hospital, walk inside and take the elevator to floor 3, and just as my gut had told me, something was terribly wrong. As I am walking down the hall there are doctors lined up on both sides of the walls praying. Then his primary hospital doctor walks out of the room where my family was and tells me my grandfather had gone into cardiac arrest a few minutes before I got there. He died before I got a chance to say goodbye. He was my best friend. I hate my gut. R.I.P. Gramps, the 25th of February 2015. Hope I'm not too late to the party. I made a throwaway just for this. So one summer during high school I spent about a week at a nearby college for this summer program thing. No need to get into details. Anyway, it was a big thing that a lot of guys were at, and we were all divided into lots of small groups, as you can imagine, with whom we did the various activities and things. Anyway, it's the first night, and we're all in the cafeteria for dinner. I see one guy who I recognize is in my small group walking around looking for a guy chaperone to talk to, and looking really sad. I remember thinking, man, that guy looks like his dad just died. He had just gotten off a phone call telling him his dad had just died. Totally unexpected. He wasn't particularly old. It was like a heart attack or something. Obviously, the kid went home that night.